Age 17, Amanda Sophia Bartlett was a young woman with short cropped dark hair and a sly, knowing smile. She is described as intelligent, creative, and gullible for love. Amanda dreamed of becoming a published author and loved to read. We know little else about the young woman from Apaswayak Cree Nation or what she may have become, because Amanda vanished without a trace in 1996. Amanda was a Pimik band member, but resided for most of her life in a Poswiak Cree Nation near the Pas, Manitoba. In 1996, her parents separated and her 14-year-old sister went to live with their father in New Brunswick, while Amanda remained behind on tribal land with their mother. For reasons that have not been made clear, Amanda was sent to Winnipeg by Child and Family Services (CFS) and placed in a group home in the city. In July of 1996, Amanda ran away from CFS group home. Employees at the home observed Amanda leave but did not follow or attempt to stop her. Amanda was last seen on the streets of Winnipeg's North End near Selkirk and Salter Streets by her uncle, Joseph Harlcrow, whom she called Smokey. Amanda apparently told him that she was alone in the city, and he offered to let her stay at his house. Amanda stated that she would make her way there, however, she never arrived and has never been heard from again. No one outside of CFS had any idea that Amanda had left the group home and was missing, least of all her family. My mom didn't even get a call or any visit from a social worker, Janet Lorther, Amanda's sister, said. Several weeks after she disappeared, her mother received a letter stating that Amanda had run away from the group home, but that since she was 17 now, CFS was under no obligation to follow her. After the letter, there was no contact from either social services or law enforcement. Various family members state that they tried to report Amanda's disappearance to the police, but that they were turned away by officers who informed them that the RCMP was not responsible for family reunions. Janet discovered that Amanda had not only never been reported as missing, but did not even have an open file case. It took Janet nearly 2 years to report her sister as missing due to the RCMP's reluctance to open the case. Stations in the Pas sent Michelle to Winnipeg police and vice versa. Ultimately, she found what she was looking for when she never expected to see it on television. In 2007, Janet was flipping through the channels when she saw a documentary called Stolen Sisters. When the film ended, there was a toll-free number on the screen to Amnesty International, which is a global movement devoted to human rights. That helped me put my foot in the door with the RCMP, she said. Finally, Janet involved the Amnesty International Human Rights of Indigenous Peoples campaign, which connected Amanda's family with Child Protection. Child Protection convinced the RCMP to open Amanda's file as a missing person. By then, it had been over 12 years since she had disappeared. In November 2012, the case was assigned to Project Devote, a task force dedicated to missing and murdered persons cases in Manitoba. Family members struggle to accept how difficult it was to report a missing loved one to authorities and have taken the case seriously. For Lothar, a federal inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous girls and women would mean a chance to investigate discrepancies in Bartlett's case and those that exist in the cases of others. Meanwhile, Lothar wonders what happened to her sister. She never applied for a SIN number, driver's license status, or social assistance, and Amanda's MB health card is still being sent to my mom's mailing address, which shows me that she never changed her address. She said, "Amanda vanished into thin air. She was here, and now she's gone." In 2018, Amanda's family spoke at the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Group (MMIWG) inquiry hearing in Thompson, Manitoba. Her mother and sister both shared their frustrations about how hard it was to report Amanda missing. They were bounced back and forth between the RCMP and the Winnipeg Police Service about who was responsible for trying to find her. Why was my word and my mom's word not good enough? Why did they have to make us wait so long? Said Amanda's sister. In the late 90s, homelessness, especially among Aboriginal youth, was a growing concern in many urban areas like Vancouver and Toronto. Similarly to recent years, it was not uncommon for teens to hitchhike from rural areas to more city centers where they were frequently fell into poverty, addiction, and sex work. It's possible that Amanda left Winnipeg in hopes of establishing a life elsewhere. Due to Amanda's circumstances as a high-risk youth, it was also very possible that she came to harm when she vanished in 1996. She may be an unknown or unidentified victim, or she may have been targeted by one of the individuals responsible for her disappearance of nearly 4,000 murdered and missing women in Canada. Some sources indicate that Amanda may have been heading from British Columbia when she disappeared. Highway number 16, nicknamed the Highway of Tears for its role in the murders and disappearances of many women since the 1970s, runs west from Winnipeg to British Columbia. The highway passes through the rugged bushlands and dark pine forests, is stunning wilderness which belies the tragedy that has struck the Aboriginal communities that struggle with serious poverty, addiction, and underfunded social services. Since public transportation has historically been inaccessible along that part of the Transcontinental Highway, many Indigenous young women hitchhike between cities and the more rural areas where tribal lands are located. If Amanda had taken rides from strangers along the highway, perhaps hoping to travel to a city with a higher population of young runaways, or even maybe to join her sister in New Brunswick, she may have come to harm by someone who picked her up. What little we know about Amanda's young life indicates that she was likely at risk and that authorities and social services did little to prevent her from going the way of so many other women and girls, missing without a trace, a life full of dreams and promises going unfulfilled, with her story being untold and unheard for years. Amanda's name joined the thousands of missing and murdered Indigenous women in Canada and the United States, a heartbreaking epidemic stemming from the systematic racism and fraud relationship between Native communities and law enforcement, which results in the underreporting and underinvestigation of these cases. In 2012, Project Devote announced that they were working on 28 cases of missing Aboriginal persons. Amanda's name was not among those listed. It has been 22 years since Amanda vanished from the streets of Winnipeg. Very little evidence is available in her case, and it does not appear that authorities have made any headway in the investigation. As of 2018, the case has still no new leads, and Amanda's family continues to search fields and bogs near the area where she vanished in the hopes of recovering some evidence of what happened to the girl after she disappeared from the streets of Winnipeg. Her sister says that she hopes that Amanda's loss will help create a better future for her own daughters and for the many vulnerable young First Nations women across Canada. At night, Janet thinks of her sister, Amanda. She can't help it. As children, the two shared a bedroom. Lother says being the younger sibling was both a blessing and a curse. Her sister liked to play tricks on her, she says. I remember getting ready for bed and she would start rolling and shaking. She would start shaking and rolling her eyes around, and she would sometimes flip her eyelids over, and that totally grossed me out, Lother said. Only it echoes in sadness. She hasn't been seen by her sister in more than 18 years, and that's 1 year longer than the time her sister lived before she went missing. She says the only place her sister was lost before she disappeared was in a book. There was no other way to describe Amanda but as unique and creative. She loved to read. She would read for hours. She said, "We're broken inside," Janet continues. If you have any information regarding Amanda Sophia Bartlett's case, please contact Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477.